Hi, this is Kerry Artek with Wicked Stocks bringing you an update in Bitcoin. I did record this video, by the way, on Wednesday, May 5th, 2025. This is a weekly chart. I'm going to show the same weekly bar chart throughout this video, so you know. This one goes back some, 7 years or so, back to 2018. And this is an important image to see. The point I'm making here is long-term 4-year, 4.5-year channel top that is based on the 2020 low against the 21 high, against the 22 low. You take that parallel off these lows and you get a settlement above this important 5-year structure back in November of last year. It is now at 83,914. And while we have broken it substantially even on an intra-week basis, all of these spikes are tariff announcements and then tariff retractions or pauses, but we have yet to, on any particular week, close back below this important 5-year structure. And when we closed above it back in November of 24, it's 9 months ago or so, that indicated, at least from what I could tell, an ultimate destination of 122,433, because there's really no line studies left. You're relegated to wave counts, at least from my methods. And that is to say, the most prominent wave count here is that 21 high against the 22 low. And if you flip that on its head, in other words, A minus B plus A, 100% full swing to the upside, this is an exhaustion point, at least near to midterm. I don't know about long term, but this is an exhaustion point on a bull move that is still in play, actually, longer term, holding above 83,914, this 5-year channel top. And what I mean by holding is continued weekly settlements above 83,914 will keep not only the 109,192 January high in reach in the coming weeks, but really more importantly, at some point this year, I think 122,433 is in play. Now I'm going to show you a signal in a moment that will clarify both of these upper targets in terms of not just attainable over a certain amount of time, but expected. And that is to say, I can open this chart up here. This chart, I basically drive home the point of 83,914. In post-editing, I'll probably zoom in here so you can see that while we collapsed on an intra-week basis below this important formation, we have yet to close below it. And until we do, this market can continue on to 122,433 in the months ahead. I'm going to move on to this chart. So let me back out of this just to let you know that I'm basically zooming in this area here on the chart to show this is the 83,914 long-term channel top I showed in the previous. You can see, in fact, I don't have to zoom in the post-editing because I'm doing it right here. You can see that while we've come close, we've yet to close back below this important line study, maintaining a stable to bullish dynamic as we continue into later year. And in fact, it was 3 weeks ago that we closed above this simple channel structure, this descending channel at the bottom of a move, once settled above, is in itself a valid buy signal. And so holding above 83,914 to 85,750 will keep 100,961 in reach. And this is the formation I was talking about a moment ago. This is a formation, 100,961, that may contain buying into June. And from here, we could fall back into the 83,000, 84,000 handles again within a matter of a month or two. And inversely, it would be a settlement above 100,961. That would be your indication to go long, to buy on strength. At this point, the risk is if you buy in the present vicinity or below this channel top, that you'll have to weather downside retracement in the coming weeks back into the 83,914 to 85,750 area. I don't have a clear sell signal at this point for that. I mean, we could find one example, the low of the pullback high. Following this low in early April, we have last week's high of 97,943. We've yet to retest that this week. Last week's low was 92,836. And so I guess while I'm at it, I'll point out that if we close this week below 92,836, we do have a sell signal back into the 83,914 area roughly. And in fact, I'm going to type this out. This is 92,836. Thanks for bearing with me there. And that is a meaningful down pivot this week, especially. Either A, we take out last week's high, 97,943, and if we then collapse and close the week Friday below 92,836, we have a key reversal high, a bearish engulfing pattern in candlestick speak that should then yield a retest of 83,914 within 2 to 3 weeks or so. Until then, holding above 92,836, we'll keep 100,961 in reach over the next week or two, possibly this week, a formation that can contain monthly highs, as I say, and is our upward continuation point as we move through the rest of the second quarter and into the first. If we close above 100,961, and I'll update you again next week, but just so you know, if you look in that yellow box, next week that is 100,412. There you see it right there, channel 32, 100,412. Just so if we want to keep track of this formation, and if I don't happen to update it Monday of next week, this video, you'll have that at your disposal. That is the upward pivot point that, if settled above on a weekly basis, signals a retest of the January 109,192 high within just about 1 to 3 weeks. And then as we continue through time, I'll zoom out here just a little bit. That AB pattern that you see here, 122,433, I would call that a 2 to 3 month objective if we were over the next week, 2 or 3, to close above that 100,961 formation. Now to the downside, it's not going to happen this week, but if we close below 83,914, which is climbing a little bit every week, then that is a significant sell signal into later year. And that, I think, would likely yield bearish continuation later in the year into the low 50s. The scenario for this, and I don't think it's likely, that is to say, I think the tariff situation gets worked out sooner than later. The dollar recovers out of its sort of new low status over the last few years. It shows recovery. It shows stability. These are my guesses. Because this is kind of a flight to quality right now that's playing out, that from what I can tell in the market. There's no longer a real strong connection between Bitcoin and the stock market from what I can tell. And so I digress. Closing below 83,914. Yes, we've got a lot going on. I'll jump back to this chart here. We've got a lot going on in the upper 60s, low 70s. You got the November 21 high, 68,964. You got a 3/8 downside Fibonacci from B to this high here. And we almost tested that a month and a half ago. This is an area that is likely to contain selling on a weekly, possibly monthly basis. But I think over time, if we do happen to close back below this 5-year channel top, that should result in a continued unwinding back to this rising 2/3 speed line that is trend defining in its own right and correlates pretty well with the 5/8 downside Fibonacci from this 22 low against that recent high. So this would be the objective. This is the big picture, kind of swinging for the fences, if you will, that I would anticipate if we close below 83,914. Remember that a failure to follow through on a classic long-term buy signal, as the settlement above 83,914 was back in November, closing back below it is in itself a valid sign of weakness that should result in continued deterioration price-wise for Bitcoin in the months to follow. I'm going to take a look at Coinbase. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about. In Coinbase is the, it's the crypto American technology company. They operate the cryptocurrency exchange. They also manage digital assets, etc. You probably know more about it than I do, but this is their stock, and I thought this was worth mentioning. It has trouble right now. It's settled below this meaningful channel bottom that goes back to March of 24. So this is a 1-year channel structure that we closed below back in early March. We attempted to take it out. We even did close back above it 3 weeks ago, but it was inside the 1% zone, which is a level that I like to use for line studies 6 months or more. If you follow my work, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we opened the following week back below it. It is this descending channel top in combination with this former channel bottom that now converges in the 210.54 to 210.83 area. This is a ceiling in Coinbase below which selling pressures should continue to build. And I would expect, a retest of this 142.58 low you can see in the yellow box over the next month or two, I think is likely, possibly even lower. This channel top has a channel bottom well below the market now at 109 and dropping. So that is all possible in the months ahead, holding below 210.54. Inversely, if we close above 210.83, I think we've got a good second quarter low, and within a matter of 3 to 5 weeks, we should test this descending two-thirds speed line at 265.18, drops to 249.81 the first week of June. The reason I mention that is if we were to close this week above 210.83, 3 to 5 week buy signal would put us into early June, where it would be really more of an upper 240s objective. You know, that's a solid, it's about a 20% move in and of itself. That's a nice play to the upside for Coinbase. Closing then above 249.81 is the full pull away factor to the upside through the rest of the year, but we're a long way from that. So I think that pretty much rounds it out. I'm going to leave you with this image. I'm going to leave you with this image I'm going to leave you with this image. Sorry about all that. This is the most appropriate for the week, and I'm going to call it a video. I'll be back soon with another update on Bitcoin. You have a great day.